This episode is general information only. Full disclaimers in the notes. Hello, welcome back. Episode 8. How are we feeling today? Feeling good?
Very good, mate.
Very good.
The steak dinner is being served again.
We had a bit of a wardrobe malfunction at the start. You came on in a white T-shirt. That was unacceptable. We looked like a boy band, so Kieran took the hit and changed into a darker T-shirt. But we do have a history of dressing pretty much identically, and we have been to a few business meetings in the past where that's happened, haven't we?
Yeah, it was a bit awkward for some of them, but I guess like in the city, it's blue suit, white shirt, and there's a fair,
I know, but
there's a fair amount of blokes doing that.
That's true, but yeah. I do remember we have done the jeans, the same boots, and the same sports coat a couple of times, and that was a little bit too much for us to handle. So we would start ringing each other and finding out who.
I just don't like to be compared to you dress wise that often. I don't like to play second fiddle.
Your clothes are definitely more expensive than mine. That's for sure.
I doubt it. They're definitely creased. Hopefully that comes out in post-production.
Mate, last week was good. We started, the next 12 rounds and looking at how guys can really start to focus on the path ahead, the next 12 months, the sort of medium to long term. We got through 4 of the pillars. Do you want to run us through just a few things that we looked at last week?
Yes. So thanks, Josh. Look, for the episode 7, for those who haven't listened to it, we're trying to go back to the start of the rebuild. So we've done some triage, which is the first 30 days, 60 days. And then we were talking about things you've got to consider for the next 12 months. That includes housing and living, your debt overall, having a safety buffer of cash. And then we also talked briefly about reviewing your superannuation and things like that you need to put your head across.
Yeah, definitely.
Some good stuff in it.
Definitely. And lots of places to look. And continuing on that theme, we're going to continue on with investing, just some investing basics. We're going to look at insurance and how to make sure you're covered and make sure you're looking in the right places, how to track your net wealth, how to get a hold of your position month on month. And most importantly, mental bandwidth. How do we wrap it all up together in a good mental health plan that helps us along the way and sets us up for success? So I'm excited for this week and then excited for future episodes. We're staying consistent, which is good.
Yeah.
We said we would.
We'll just be back weekly.
We got to be back weekly. And our audience has been pretty gracious in terms of, I've had a look at the numbers, very kind, which is great. And Kieran, we had some feedback. I had some feedback. Should we walk through that? We really enjoy the feedback from our listeners. It's great to get that engagement. There's nothing better, whether it be, that we're helping someone, or we love a bit of pushback as well. It's great to be challenged on some of the things that we're doing. We're always looking to improve and refine our messaging and stuff like that, and where we're focusing.
Well, our objective is to help as many people as possible. That's why we kick this off. That's why you're encouraged to start this. And we've been getting messages through, even private messages through YouTube and Spotify and through the website, etc. And one of them sort of resonated that I hadn't considered, and it was pretty good. But someone said, and I'm paraphrasing, I could probably read the whole thing out, and we love getting these feedback. When we were talking about the 12 months and, we were trying to say, make sure you've got your savings together, make sure you're watching your spending and expenditure. One of the feedbacks was, control the controllables. And one of those was, hey, if you're living like a pauper while the ex lives like a queen, means your savings are only half enjoyed. That's effectively what this person was saying. And I sort of stopped and reflected on it. And I thought, well, yeah, and almost went, well, the best return on investment is actually invest in what can't be split. So things like your memories with your kids and your health, and hobbies and passions that you have. Those things are actually not divisible in a divorce after that separation. Anyway, that was made as a point. And number one, I wanted to say it. So thanks to listener, whoever that is. And it made me think about it. And I was going to ping that back to you, Josh, and sort of say any feedback on that or any of the other feedback you're getting.
It's great. I mean, from that that particular point, I do agree. It goes back to that old Stoic philosophy of sphere of control, what I took out of that was focus on the things that you can control. And there are a lot of things that you can control. You can control the time that you put in with your kids. You can control the things that you do for your health and for your relationships and the efforts that you put in. And like you said, these are all non-financial things. They go a long way. The only caveat to that, and particularly around money, because I think, living like a pauper while, your ex lives like a queen. I just wanted to be clear about what that means in real terms, because when you do look at from an assets perspective, and I'm not 100% sure where the listener was going with that one, but the only red flag that I took from that was that please don't get the idea that, when you split up and before your assets get finalized, that you can just spend willy-nilly and it's going to be all halved at the end of the day. Yes, it will be, but one thing listeners need to be aware of is that when they do look at reconciling assets, they look at the date of separation.
Okay.
So they're looking at financial positions at the date of separation. So just got to be careful about thinking that you can just spend whatever because it's all going to get in a pool eventually. But it's really about when they ascertain what that pool looks like at a given date of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so I don't know if this is a legal question or whatever, but if say you've got your house and you've got 300 grand in cash and you've separated, and then 6 months down the track you go, well, and I think in one of our episodes you've actually said that you've got to make sure your bank accounts are split or credit cards are cancelled, that you are joint on things, that you also want to make that separation, because then it becomes a lot clearer who spent what of what funds. But let's say if I did have 300,000 and I've just left it in the bank account joint, and maybe it's in the offset account or whatever. If I go and spend 100 grand with my kids to go on a big European trip, so the 300 grand's being reduced by 200, are you saying the courts may look at that and say, well, we've got to split 150 each of the 300 on the date you were separated, and ex-wife gets 150,000, I would be left with 50 because there's only 200 grand left in the bank. Is that sort of what it means?
Well, it's not, there's no easy answer. It's a complicated question, because they will look at things like, what are you spending the money on? Was it for the children? Was it in their best interest? Were the expenses reasonable living expenses versus buying a $100,000 sports car, for example, to evade. Yeah. So there's no yes or no to this, but it is something, again, it's just about understanding that you need to consider that they're going to look at your assets, liabilities, all that type of thing at the date of separation. And then it's up to you to prove the expenditure that you've had post that. Is it reasonable? And all of these factors will be looked at. So there is no clear cut, but you just can't go to Las Vegas and drop 300 at the casino and then think that it's only $150,000. It doesn't work like that, right? Very extreme example.
Yeah.
But
or I've only lost 45% of it because my wife lost the other 55.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something
got
like
it.
that.
Okay, fair point. So it's got to be reasonable. Thanks, listener.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
You.
But
was there other feedback? I thought you've got heaps more.
Yes. So I did get some feedback. So we roll up some of these segments into shorts and I post them up on TikTok. So we had a couple of interesting feedbacks, actually. One was in relation to wealth. That struck a chord. I mentioned the definitions of wealth and that we had a very material focus on what wealth meant. People pushed back on that, saying, no, wealth is physical assets and then happiness is something else. That was interesting to see that people still, for me, it felt like that was exactly the point that I was making, is that some people can't get past that definition of wealth being money and physical assets. But if you look at the true definition of wealth, it extends beyond balance sheets and ledgers. There is financial wealth, but there's also health is wealth. Relationships is wealth. The work that you're doing, the relationship with your kids is wealth. For me, I think all of these things need to be looked at. And particularly when you are going through a time of transition where you may not have a lot of financial assets, it's important to broaden your definition of what wealth means, because if you're tying it up into such a narrow perspective or definition, you're really setting yourself up for failure, and you're limiting your focus, potentially ignoring all the wealth that you might have in your life in terms of the quality of your relationships, the fact that you're happy at work, the fact that you wake up fairly pain-free and you get to play tennis on the weekend and stuff like that. So for me, it was just about broadening that definition. What's your thoughts on that, mate?
I would say don't judge yourself on just your money.
No,
There's a lot of unhappy people with a lot of money.
Yes, yes. I know a few personally. There's a lot of benefits, but there's a lot of stresses. Ask people that have got money that are running businesses, and it's not the fairy tale that you think it is. So investing basics, mate. So
okay,
where should people start with their investing? I guess this is about exploring places that they should be looking at in terms of getting their investing back on track. What's a few that come to mind from your perspective, obviously, without giving advice? What are some places that our listeners could probably look at?
Good point. This isn't advice. It's more time that you have to spend, listeners have to spend researching each of these sectors, I would say, of where you can put your money to retrieve something at a later point.
Yes.
So maybe to start broadly, you could say there's index funds and exchange traded funds, however you want, ETFs, you may have heard of those.
Yes.
And these are sort of an aggregation type model that you can invest directly or through superannuation fund or through trusts. Most of those are based around a theory, and I think Warren Buffett may semi-subscribe to this, that 70% of fund managers, people who manage money for a fee, perform the index over 10 years. So 70% of them are underperforming the index over the 10 years that they've got the investment. They'll have some years when they're over, some years when they're under, but that's what that was. That's one sector.
And then you've got shares where you can invest directly through the various exchanges like ASX. What about real estate?
Yeah, well, that's another way you can invest your money. Post this, you can invest directly, buy a property.
Yep.
Your main residence, or from an investment, you might buy commercial property or residential property.
Yes.
A lot of sectors there. Or you can, there's also funds, managed funds, REITs, real estate investment trusts, and a lot of those are listed on the ASX as well.
Yes.
Australian Stock Exchange. And all of these things can go up and down and at different times of the economic cycle. So you have to appreciate the risk of things going up and sometimes things coming back down.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, it's about starting small, being consistent. Where can our listeners go to educate themselves around investing? What kind of resources have we got? Free resources specifically where investors can actually find out more about different types of investments and calculators and things like that.
Well, we want to probably point listeners to government websites, actual .gov websites, if possible.
Agree.
Things like ASIC, the Australian Securities Investment Commission, has a Money Smart. Josh, we can probably put links. Can we put links in this?
I could put links. I'll put links in the show notes.
In the show notes, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just easier. You can check the ATO, the Australian Tax Office in Australia. It's got super rules about superannuation and contributions and what sort of tax concessions someone should get. We should also say that the sectors that we didn't cover there, obviously there's bonds and term deposits or savings accounts.
Yes.
That you need to consider. Other ones, the Australian Securities Exchange, the ASX.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can do some research. They have different things. That's not a gov website. That's actually a company, but that manages it, but it's very heavily regulated. It's the biggest one in Australia. Maybe also check out your superannuation fund. So go to your superannuation fund website.
Yes.
And they will have a lot around growth funds, balanced funds, low risk funds, those sort of investment choices that you can make inside of your own superannuation fund and then compare it with others that are out there.
Yeah, that's great. I jump on the ASIC Money Smart a fair bit. They've got some really good calculators there, particularly around retirement savings calculators, superannuation contribution calculators, compound calculators, where you can just put it all in and see some projections. I find that super interesting.
Yeah.
The superannuation funds, they've all got them. They've all got a lot of education materials. They've also got calculators and things like that, which I think people will find really helpful in terms of trying to understand their position, or if they forecast different types of contributions over a period of time with whatever interest rate, they can get a kind of view on what their retirement looks like and stuff like that. So if you want to get yourself educated, certainly look at those places. And then for, I guess, legal advice, you've got the Law Society. If you need legal representation, you can go there and you can find accredited lawyers and stuff like that, along with some other education tools. So lots of places to look. We'll put those in the show notes, but do check them out. You'd be quite surprised how much education materials out there to bring yourself up to speed. Use the resources, but educate yourself enough to know that you're speaking to someone reliable.
Mm-hmm. Look, do your own research is a good one.
Yes.
Big believer. And if you increase your financial literacy is great, but there are times in your life when going to a professional is important as well. Like you're right. You do want to do your own stuff, but you can easily take a meeting with a financial planner or something like that.
Definitely.
And you'll get a good and you'll get a good vibe. Most of them do that for free to start with, or it might be at a very low cost. So
yes.
And remembering that you are like, although this is the pod is, you could say, oh, it's in relation to when people are separating or divorce or whatever, but it's not really. It's about how to rebuild after a major event or trauma. Now that could be a bankruptcy for all you know, like there could be any other reason as to why a big event has happened in your life that you may need to get advice. Inheritance, etc.
Inheritance is the one I was thinking of. You get a large windfall. What do I do with this $300,000-$400,000 here? How do I invest it? What's the most tax effective strategies for it?
Or if you have a kid who's got a disability, how do I make sure I'm properly looking after them and things? So there are. I think there's a combination here. Do your own research, because then you'll be financially literate to be able to ask the right questions and give the right data to whomever you take on as a professional. But a lot of the simple things that we're talking about, you can do by yourself as well.
Definitely. And that moves us on to insurance and estate planning, which is another huge topic. We touched on it, I guess, last week. We touched on it in the financial triage. It's a really important topic. Most Australians don't have adequate insurance cover. 2 out of 3. I find insurance a little bit like superannuation, Kieran, because it's kind of in the background and you can't access it, or you can't see a direct benefit at the time, then people tend to discard it. Not intentionally, but you do focus on your day-to-day spending, and we've all got cost of living pressures, as we've discussed many times over. But the importance of being adequately insured, and you can really come unstuck if you don't look at your insurance. I've got that poodle hashtag. Yeah. That makes me look zesty every time I go out and walk him, especially when he's got his scarf on, whenever my wife's decided to put. You can imagine it, right?
Yeah.
I'm in PT.
Why do you have to keep the dog warm? Why is that?
It's not about warmth. It's about
it's an outfit.
It's a fashion.
Okay.
It's an outfit. He's got mint green turtleneck. It's bizarre. My wife buys this stuff, puts it on him, and I feel so sorry for him, but he enjoys it. I don't know what's going on there. He's just a zesty French poodle. But anyway, I digress. But he broke his leg, early on when we had him. And that leg cost me $3,000. He wasn't insured. He was only a puppy. And as the dog was healing, I didn't get insurance straight away, because I thought, well, he's broken his leg and I'll look at it. And within a month, he broke his other leg. We're talking $6,000. And
wow,
the dog's not even 9 months old, because he was a puppy. He had chicken legs.
Did your son have an alibi?
My wife blames me for the breakages. And then I threatened to have him put down because I was so upset about the dog. I was so upset about doing another $3,000. I was so upset. I said to my wife, I said, "That's it." I said, he's gone. He's out of here. And the dog's looking at me like, "Who are you? You have no respect for my life." But anyway, we've since increased the bond. I would never do that.
So you've insured it now?
Yeah, I insured it straight after Kieran, and he hasn't even had a runny nose since then for 8 years. So it's Murphy's Law, mate.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's when you don't have it, that's when all hell breaks loose. So a bit of an aside there, but relevant to, it costs us $40 a month to insure this dog, but we would have saved $6,000, right?
Mm.
And we liken it to most, whether it's car insurance, home insurance, insuring ourselves. Do have a look at that in terms of, do you need income protection? Do you need TPD cover? Do you need death cover? Where can I get these types of cover? Do I want to take this cover inside of, for example, the superannuation environment and take advantage of that? Do I prefer to get a retail policy that's tax deductible, for example? So again, these are different places that you can look, but make sure that you do look at all those different aspects of your life and your situation, and do make sure that you're appropriately covered. Any comments, questions?
Maybe the definition. Yeah, no, I would just say the definition of like life insurance is when you die, obviously there was funds left for your estate or whomever you define in that policy. You can have a death policy on yourself. Income protection. So if you're unable to work for a number of different reasons as defined by your policy, which is where you have to really do your research or take advice. And that TPD cover that you mentioned, which is total permanent disability cover, again, it's all defined in your policy as to what they will classify as total and permanent disability, on which they will pay out, and things that aren't. And the last one was trauma, I think. So you get diagnosed with something that is defined in the policy. Sorry, repeating it, but something like cancer might be defined, maybe a stage of cancer, maybe a type of cancer. Those sort of things are in this, and they have a payout. Maybe look, the Money Smart might have something on that, and also your superannuation fund. So check on both.
Yes, and those, you're right, Money Smart does have, they got a lot of plain English guys and education tools and things like that can support. Again, we go back to tools like Law Access, look at your super funds, because the super funds have got these policies, so they have a lot of plain English education around those different types of covers, what they mean. You can actually dig into the product disclosure statements and dig deep. One of the faux pas I think that we're all capable of making when it comes to insurance, I know I can definitely be like this, is not paying enough attention to the policy, to the details of the policy. You get cover, like for example, TPD or income protection, whatever the case may be, and it looks cheap, and then you look at the policy, and when you look at what's not covered, you're like, well, that's kind of 80% of what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's not there. So do read the policies and make sure that, details matter, and make sure that whatever's in that policy lines up to what you're looking for. If not, maybe
what cover you're actually going for. That's right. I was going to say, I've seen one where the guy got income protection insurance, when he first started working basically, and kept paying his insurance. And then later in life, as a 45-year-old, had a heart condition, and then looked at his policy, and it was still the policy amount was based on his wage 25 years before.
Wow. Oh, and he didn't have it updated.
It hasn't put it to where his salary was, right? So he probably gets the premiums. There'd be a lot of us where we get the thing from the insurance agent or from his super fund. It's in an envelope, and you go, I'll get to it later. I think what we should be saying here is, guys, and anyone, any person listening.
Because we have female listeners. I've looked at the analytics on Spotify.
Oh, yeah. It's
women, middle-aged women
as well.
Because they want to know what guys are up to, Kieran.
Well,
this is what's happened.
Actually, that's a little bit
women,
of feedback I got.
We have female listeners. They're sticky backs when it comes
I'm probably distracted there, but I'll come back to your point that if you have this, you're going through the rebuild that you're about to do, this is something you want to allocate time to, in the same way you would allocate time, I'm going to sit down and watch the footy, right? There's an hour and a half. Mate, if you do an hour and a half worth of research on some of the things we're talking about, if you just block that out, you will make unbelievable progress.
Oh, 100%.
So I just want to say, maybe approach it in that way. Sorry, just before I do, your point around our lady audiences out there. Also, I got feedback from someone who listened and said, hey, that may actually be, I'm logged in on my wife's family account listening to you guys, or ex-wife's family account on Spotify.
Okay.
And another mate said, well, I log in via my 19-year-old son's account. So if you're seeing a lot of young listeners out there as well.
Yeah. I'd hate these, the young blokes to go into and say, my dad was just listening to episode 2 thinking of separation. That may not...
this is all about rebuilds for blokes at all ages.
Yeah.
Regardless.
And without diverting too much, we're spending, the first episodes trying to look at critical life support areas that guys need to focus on that are in the worst situations. But this is certainly not a doom and gloom podcast. We're trying to provide support to the people that need it the most. But the intention is really, this is a men's shed. This is where you go to exchange ideas, exchange education, exchange views around whether it be health, wellness, and eventually get to a point where we're bringing on lots of different guests that are experts in different topics, particularly focused around the Australian climate, for example, Australian law. It's interesting that 50% of people die without wills.
Wow, that's a big stat.
50%, 1 in 2. And when you think of when people die, the types of complexities around their assets and what that means, and it goes off to the public trustee, and then it's a complete schmozzle, and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And there's a good chance that the wishes of the deceased are not going to be met because they don't have any indication of what fairness looks like and where they want their assets distributed to.
And it's also costly.
It's costly. It costs a lot of money. It's a lot of wasted money, and it generally leads to a lot of family disputes as well. So people die without wills, and you see a lot of families end up splitting up as a result of trying to distribute those assets. And
they're relatively cheap to do your will. So let's put that out there again. Make sure you do it. With powers of attorney, I remember an example where an elderly couple didn't have a power of attorney. They had one child who was an adult child, CEO of a company, like very, very good guy, upstanding guy. And his parents didn't have a power of attorney for them, but they both went with dementia, effectively Alzheimer's, I think, within 3 months of each other, effectively, and had to go into a home. And so it goes, okay, well, I'm the sole child. I'll look after the affairs and get it all, get everything done, because he was doing everything for them. And it went to the, what'd you say before? The state?
The public
trustee to look after the affairs. And the affairs weren't much. They were just like a house and not a lot of money. But the house was worth a lot of money. And the guardianship fee is a percentage of the value of the house every year. So just by having the house, keeping it aside and having, they were putting to a nursing home, there's a fee there of cash that has to be paid.
Yes, and they've got to have, yes.
I want to say it was like a very large fee. I can't even remember what it is. So guys, even everybody, you should look at guardianships, powers of attorney, guardianships for your kids, powers of attorney, even for your parents and yourself.
Yes.
To make sure that they are all sorted out, because you're going through a matrimonial effect. I've seen other ones where inheritances come down, and then because they haven't finished their divorce, ex-wife gets some of the inheritance.
Yeah.
Right? Even though you've separated. So these things you really need to consider. Again, for the time you'd spend on watching a game of footy, don't watch every game of footy on the weekend.
Don't even worry about footy. Footy to me, watching a footy game that's good fun.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You look at the amount of hours people spend on their phone, on social media, for example. If you use a fraction of that social media time in educating yourself, you're going to be better off than probably 90% of people. That's the reality of it. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So, definitely encourage people. You've got time.
Yeah. So those couple of horror stories, that should be enough as to
That's
why
enough.
this is important.
Yes.
And your other one about dying without a will, seen that before. And yeah, it can be very, very tough on everybody.
Yes, and it is scary, and hopefully we didn't scare you away with this, but we just want to scare you enough to take action and to look at things, because it's a lot scarier when you're confronted with the realities of these things if they do happen, and then you are going to have a lot of remorse. So do yourself a favor and get that organized. Tracking net worth.
Well, now
how do you do it? You're a financial guru, Kieran. How do you do it?
You know that you're the better one at this. You're way better at this. You spend the time and detail. Mine's just a simple spreadsheet that I probably do each year.
You're great on the spreadsheet. I'm not going to lie. I don't have your skills on the spreadsheet, but I do love a good spreadsheet. Why? Because it's simple, it's flexible, it doesn't cost anything, and it can do a lot. It'll do as much as you want it to do. And again, there could be a bit of a learning curve, but I think for most people, it's not. If you can chuck your assets in there, chuck your income, chuck your expenses in there, you can get a pretty good picture, like a holistic view of your financial position. It's not fancy, but it'll do the job. It'll definitely do the job. There are a lot of free tools out there. And I go back to, for example, Money Smart. They've got budget planners. You've got your banking apps. Some of your banking apps have got things where you can put in budgets and things like that. And you can track and categorize your spending and see what you're spending on different categories depending
and your
upon
goals.
Whether you got savings goals, you got spending goals across maybe food, utilities, going out, subscriptions. The banks, a lot of that stuff, they've got the data there that sort of help you build the budget and categorize the spending. And these are all
I know that's on my bank.
Yeah, I've got the same,
but I've never used it. So
yes,
maybe that's.
I don't use it, but I can see how a lot of people would use it. Because
what do you use?
I've gone full circle, Kieran. I've used everything. I'll use any app and every app. I've downloaded them all like I'm some sort of a finance YouTube reviewer. But no, I just do it in my spare time because I was always looking, for a long time, like most people, it's like fitness apps and stuff. You're looking for that magic bullet. If I get this perfect app, it's going to change everything and make everything fantastic. I realized they're all good and bad. It's like what we're talking about travel. You go to different countries. There's good parts and there's bad parts. And there's no such thing as perfect. There's no magic bullet. And I just found myself procrastinating in the experience, to be honest with you. So I just decided I'd used the envelope system, YNAB's one, and there's Frollo and Money Brilliant, and they have syncing and they sync to your banks. Look, it's great if that's what turns you on and that's what gets you going, like do it. But it's not going to change your financial position, right? So I actually just went back to a spreadsheet. And it's great. It's easy.
And just track it every quarter or every
month. Every month.
Okay.
Every month. I'll go in there and I'll put in pay and stuff like that. And then I'll just kind of work out what I got left over for the month. And I try not to make it too prescriptive because I don't want to be in it every day. But I want to have an idea of what I'm spending each month or how much I've got left over.
Yeah. Set yourself that you're going to do it on the first of the month. Let's say download your bank statements and then look at it, allocate it, and then say, okay, and then what is my assets actually worth? So what's my super fund worth? What's my house roughly worth?
Yeah, and then I'll put in there just my insurance policies and things like that.
Yep.
So I know what's going on there. One habit that I've always had and it's always carried with me forever in a day, and it's just for me, it's mentally, it works. Every payday, I pay myself first. So by pay myself first, it means I'll pay myself and invest into whatever assets I use, whether it be cash or shares or ETFs, whatever. I'll put money in there first and then I look at my expenses. Okay. I always sort myself out first. Some people do the opposite and then, they do all the expenses and then whatever's left over for me. But I try and prioritize myself and then I prioritize all the other companies after that. That makes sense. So that works for me, but each to their own. Lots of resources around there, but you can't.
You can just write it in a book if you want. Just get a
You
journal
write
book.
it, get it in a journal. I don't know who's doing that, Kieran.
Who's handwriting?
But it's like,
oh, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of blokes who
love
don't
to
really like it. They might be working on their, I don't know, their
pen and
old
paper.
Dell computer that's about 32 years old with their MYOB that was installed at the time and still clicking along. I doubt they're going to open up the spreadsheet, but they could do it in a book and write things down.
The old book, yeah. You can't beat pen and paper, and you know what? I think that's a great example of going back to basics with your tools and trying to maybe reduce some of your engagement with electronic tools. You know, it's like physical books and journals and, you know, back to pen and paper. Isn't it not terrible? I know it's difficult and not practical for a lot of people, but I think sometimes it's good to move away from some of these tools.
Well, write down your goal because, you know, of what your goals are for the end of the year.
I always write down my goals every year. And I do that as a pen and paper exercise. And I always start in paper and then I kind of move it onto a spreadsheet. When you're tracking the actions and the stages and things like that, it's nice to work with a spreadsheet. Just me personally, but
okay,
just an idea. We've saved the best till last, which is really about mental bandwidth and support. How do guys stay healthy during this time? They're trying to rebuild themselves. They've gone through their financial triage. They're probably still pretty raw.
I think, well, your GP, your general practitioner doctor, should be able to give you referrals for subsidized sessions.
That's a mental health.
So go to your GP. I think we've said before, a lot of large workplaces have a similar sort of plan that you can go to a person or you can get some free confidential.
That's the EAP, Employee Assistance Program, which is great if you can access that. Because
governments would have it. If you work for a government department,
100%. But I've worked for a lot of private sector organizations that have the exact same thing. Most sort of mid to large organizations will generally have some sort of a professional counseling services. I wouldn't really see it in a small startup or anything like that.
No.
But certainly in sort of those mid-tier, larger companies, you generally see that. They're really good because that's generally fully subsidized, whereas the mental health plans are probably partially subsidized. Harder to get the mental health plans through the GP, but I also understand some people like to keep confidential.
Yeah.
So all of that is...
It is confidential.
It's extremely confidential. So, but some people do like to keep that separation and would rather just go out to their GP and deal with that off the books. And I think that's perfectly fine too. It's, again, horses for courses, whatever gets you engaged in those types of
you're going through, you may be going through a bit of a trauma that you've got, hopefully you have mates that you can go to as well. So that would be a good spot. I'm sure they have your best interests at heart. It was Are You OK Day yesterday.
It was.
As well. So there's organisations.
Beyond Blue.
Beyond Blue. Yeah, there's another one. So those sort of ones are out there too. That's free to give them a call, and Lifeline.
Yes.
Give them a call and they'll be able to help and have people there who are very interested in giving you help.
Yes.
Just to get through. Remember, it's all transitory. It's a transition you're going through, not finality. So,
you brought up mates, and I think that is brilliant. If you can use your mates, the only thing I would say to that is just be careful which mates you go to, because I've got mates and you've got mates, and understand different types of mates serve different purposes as well. Sometimes you got your good time, have a beer, talk shit mates, and then you got the mate that you can actually sit down and open up with, and it's not going to give you any sort of toxic advice or that's actually got your best interests. So just use your mates, but just be careful about your mate selection. I guess.
Fair. There's also, I've noticed there's a couple of community groups around here, like blokes have started out walking groups for mates, and then they sit and have a coffee, and afterwards they're all wearing T-shirts that sort of say that sort of process. I think Gus Wallen started one up as well. He's a radio guy here in Australia. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good intentioned people out there that want you to do well.
Yes, the
And
men's sheds.
some of them may not have even met you yet.
What about the ones that turn up to, someone's place and they start helping each other out with building stuff and they just
You
go
could send
there?
a few to my place. I've got to fix this leak in my house, but it's sort of like, yeah,
Are you just going to
that could
give them?
drive
You
me.
going to give them counselling while they're doing an extension on your patio?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't heard of those, Josh. Where
Yeah,
they come over, fix your
they
place?
come in. I think they sort of jump on the tools a little bit, and kind of it goes back to that sort of physical and helping each other out. Fix a lawnmower or something like that, and they sort of get chatting and talk about stuff. But
Oh,
I
that's
do
good.
I really like those places where people up and give each other support, or the walking groups. To your point, the ones that I find can be a bit of a double-edged sword is the ones I've seen online, because they're well-intentioned, but then it's hard to control the toxicity. And I've seen, for example, just through this podcast, I'm a member of some of these dads groups and things like that. And the intention of the group is good. Some of the information is good, but then you'll get people on there that you can tell they're in a very toxic state.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're just spewing toxic messages through these groups, and it becomes almost, it feels like it's turning into like a woman hating group.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And I look at that and that turns me off straight away. And I just don't see the benefit of indulging that type of discourse with people. And I don't think you're helping anybody by continuing with toxic messages about the other 50% of our society. So,
well, you want to come out of it to be in a good way for the next chapter of your life as well.
100%.
So you're trying to,
you want to keep the respect there, don't you, along the way, and you don't want to turn into that sort of guy.
Just the other one is, it's not just hanging out with mates. Sports, getting into sports teams. It's a similar thing for your children as well. If they're in sports teams, they're less likely to be depressed. If have a faith as well, they're less likely. There's things that are actually, my mum does St. Vincent de Paul and things like other community groups that are about the more you help, the better you feel.
Yes.
It's not just about you just receiving, you're actually going out and doing other things that make strong community feelings.
Yes. I think contribution is huge. And even if you are going through a tough spot, helping other people gives perspective as well. It's like there's levels to what a tough spot looks like.
Yes.
And when you start seeing people, different versions of a tough spot, you'll start to look at your own situation. I had a mate reach out to me. He was in a bit of a tough spot with his relationship, and then we were chit-chatting. When he started rattling off all of his assets, I was thinking to myself, you're not as tough as you think you're in. You know what I mean? It's like when you got holiday homes and caravans and commercial properties and lots of cash and things like that, you go, okay, this is an inconvenient time for you, but please, there's people out there that are in really tough spots that have got less than nothing. So, and I get it's relative. I get that as well.
But when it comes to your like when it comes to your kids and family, that probably isn't the top of the priority, and that's the thing you see most. So
yes,
it's not. But all of those things are going to be solved in due course.
Yes. But you mentioned sport. Sport's a great one because it checks a few boxes. You got the camaraderie of people around you. You got the health aspect of it. That's huge.
You get new stories.
You get new stories.
The things that you've been in a bond with.
Yes.
Team sports especially.
Yes.
But, be a team sport.
Yeah, but it's sport, it's social, it's mental health, it's physical health. Sport's great, but if you don't, get some exercise, get the sleep, hit the gym.
Get the endorphins.
Get the endorphins, hit the weights. The weights is super important. Look at your sleep as well. Try and get yourself into a good sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene's huge. We'll cover more of that off in the health series, but you want to look at places to look at your sleep. It can solve a lot of issues if you can get that sorted. And then a bit of mindfulness. I find that one really hard, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
The practice of, well, it's not that difficult. I find it hard just to sit still for 10 minutes and just focus on my breath. And I keep wanting to go back to it. I found it really difficult to keep that up, which means that I probably need it more than I think.
Yeah.
The fact if I can't sit still for 10 minutes, that's showing a lot more about me. And
Yeah, I've never tried it. So realistically,
I think you'd be a good candidate for that.
I'd like to
Just
see my
quietly.
brain. Yeah.
Because you're a real thinker, Kieran.
Oh,
You're thinking all the time. Like
yeah.
if anybody needs to shut that brain down for 10 minutes, it's you. But no, all good stuff. And in terms of resources, takeaways, places to look, we talked about Beyond Blue. You got Lifeline if you're in a real bother and you haven't got someone reliable that you can chat to your GP. They can help you out with mental health plans. Look at those workplace EAP resources if you've got them. Have a look online for men's sheds near you. It's worth a crack, even if you go once just to try it out. It's not going to hurt you. Men's sheds. Yeah, mensshed.org and they can show you what's around your area. And then there's different types of mindfulness apps that are free that can help you get into the practice of that. So a lot of this stuff costs absolutely nothing except your time. So please spend the time, because generally around this period, you don't have a lot of money, but you do have time. So spend that time engaged and trying to help yourself out, educate yourself and take advantage of these resources. That wraps up. Anything you wanted to kind of add to that, or anything we've discussed in the last 4 pillars?
That's pretty good. Other than saying a lot of these things we're talking about, they may not apply to you right now, but they may apply to mates of yours now.
Yes.
So keep an eye out or refer the pod, and maybe we get to help more people together. So
yes, that's a good point. And we are trying to broaden the net out as much as possible. So please, if you can like and subscribe, share the pod. Even if you're part of men's groups, please share any of our collateral with them, share some of the show notes with them, the links to resources and stuff like that. So that wraps up the financial part of things. From here, mate, where are we off to?
Well, you want to get into a bit of health, a little bit of...
I do want to get into a bit of, I like that.
Yeah, no, I'm keen. I'm keen to hear more about it.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah. And so we're going to look at mental health, sleep. We're going to look at working out, supplementation, things like that. So we've got a lot of areas. Again, it's going to be places to look. I love the health side of things. I find it very interesting. Again, this is not advice, but you know what I like in us too, Kieran? You know what I want to be? It's like we consume all this information and I almost want to feel like I'm an aggregation tool. Where you can go in and say, here's some places that I've looked at that I think you might want to have a look at as well. That gives some interesting advice and some free resources and stuff like that to get people on track without having to invest hours and hours at listening to different podcasts and things like that.
Mate, you're my distillation tool. So
you
aggregate it all and then just give us good bits of where we should look or not. Same thing with the technology.
To technology. I know.
And so I hope you'll be able to do the same for me for my testosterone replacement therapy and peptides, cold plunges, saunas.
Mate,
love it all.
A guy with a voice as deep as yours on TRT, that'd be frightening, Kieran. Frightening. So yeah. You'll sound like Barry White if you get on the TRT.
I just want your hair, mate. That's what I'm after.
No, you just it's all about the lighting, Kieran. Lighting and berries. That's all you want.
Oh, that's good,
okay, mate. Mate, this has been great. Thanks again.
Thanks, JP.
I'll go to the cutting room floor now and start editing out all the nonsense, and we'll get something up this weekend. Finish up. Talk to me.
What I was going to say Father's Day.
I know,
to those
Father's Day.
Hopefully everyone got some really great time with their kids. And if you didn't, hopefully you get some soon.
Were you pleased with your Father's Day efforts from your family?
Yeah. No, I had a great day. Day.
Me too.
I don't expect anything.
No,
honestly.
Either day. But I sat down. I had a nice lunch with the family. I was just with a glass of red. I was just so happy. I was just in my happy place. I'm like,
I had a couple of 2 years old.
Did you?
schooners
God,
out at Penrith on the Nepean.
nice.
Excellent.
Excellent, right?
Yeah.
That's
I can recommend the place.
happy
There's
to
one.
well,
Like what are they called?
which one?
The log cabin.
The log cabin at Penrith.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was really,
shout out to the log cabin at Penrith.
yeah,
Okay.
very nice.
Well, I didn't think your car would take you as far as Penrith from the northern beaches, but anyway, I think he was incapable of making that trip.
Hey, it's the long range version. All
Fair
good.
play, fair play. Mate, thanks a lot. Have a great weekend,
Okay.
and we will talk soon.
Thanks, JP.
All
See you,
right.
mate. Bye-bye.
This episode is general information only. Full disclaimers in the notes.